friends, my name is Andrea. I'm an artist in residence from LCI Concord. I hope I'm finding you safe and well. Today I have a quick activity for you that is going to be gathering the inspiration of spring and all the beautiful greens that come with it. It isn't necessarily a project that the final product is the main focus, but rather the process of creating is. And so we'll be doing it with whatever paint you have on hand, but I'll go through some materials here and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so as I mentioned, we don't want to focus too much on specific materials, but rather whatever materials you have on hand. And because I said we're using the inspiration of the greens found in spring right now, we need some paint that's going to create that. So rather than go straight into the green, I'm just using an acrylic paint. Again, it's just something I had on hand. You could use a tempera paint if you would like, but I would say for this exercise, you probably want a thicker body paint rather than say something like a watercolor of sorts, or you could use oil too, but I think for the time purposes, tempera or acrylic would be best. I also do have a jar of water, and then I do have just some random paint brushes that I have on hand. Again, nothing specific. And then whatever white surface you have, meaning it could be something like a sketchbook you already have, it could be a canvas if you would really like, it could be a scrap piece of paper, it could be from your grocery list from the last time you made one. So don't worry about what that surface is. The idea is we're just going to be placing marks and playing with making greens. And as silly as that sounds, I think there's just so much we can take from nature right now as we look around at these unfolding greens of spring, whether it's these bright fluorescent almost greens of these new buds that are emerging, or these deeper, darker, cooler colors that the iris leaves embrace. You name it, you could just look outside and pinpoint so many more than your eye would probably even be able to capture. So that's our inspiration today. We're just covering this paper, just playing, just mixing. Where you take it from that point is up to you, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. So I don't like to add any water to my paintbrush aside from cleaning it. So I do have a paper towel here in order to wipe that down. And so you'll notice I have a couple piles of yellow here. Purpose for that is once you kind of get some piles that are dirtied, so to speak, by some other colors, then it's hard to get back to that brighter yellow or brighter green again, in case I feel so encouraged to do so. You'll notice I have red, and hopefully some of you are going, hello, red does not make or help you make green. In this case, it's going to be used to neutralize or dull down that green to help you get some of those deeper greens, like maybe found in, say, a magnolia tree, in the shadows of those, so that you can just see the depth and scale of these, that everything can't just be bright, but it's also a way of not using black. As far as I'm concerned, it's just a huge it just dulls down your colors aggressively, whereas the red will help you keep the tone, which we'll go over that. So we're just going to play. I have a couple piles of yellow here. I'm just going to pull from one. I could even leave it there. If you'll notice, I'm just working on a paper plate so I can get rid of it, whatever surface you can work on. I don't love working on those little palettes with the little circles in it because I feel like it kind of confines your mixing. But I'm going to grab some yellow. Now, when you go to mix your green for the first time, I'm going to encourage, let's do some light ones first. Look how very little amount of blue I got on the edge of that, and you'll notice how what little bit of blue is going to take over that yellow. That yellow is so light in comparison that blue just takes it over and saturates it immediately. It's a lot harder to then continue to add yellow to it and make it lighter, lighter, lighter. You're much better off just starting with that yellow and adding just the teeniest amount of blue to it. It gives you a little bit more control in mixing. That goes for about any color that you're mixing that involves a darker versus lighter color. So now as far as the surface goes, again, I'm just making marks. I'm just playing. Now I might just say I'm going to play with the paintbrush itself and say, okay, what's it going to be like if I twist my brush a certain direction, squiggle it here and there, and I've got just tons and tons of greens that I can do with this, so I don't want to take up too much space. Maybe you decide to put dots on it. Again, this is where your creativity, the application isn't so much a concern. You're just having fun creating the color and then putting it down. Now I might continue on with this idea, well, what if I add a little bit more blue? Again, it doesn't take much. It's going to change my green dramatically. Look how dark that is. You'll notice in that case I didn't rinse out my brush because I was going darker anyway, and I could put it beside it, put it wherever you want in that case. So I'll just continue to play with that. See what kind of darkness I get. Now you see why it's kind of important to have some other yellows reserved off to the side. Make some marks, twist that brush around, play with some different sizes of brushes if you want. And one other thing you'll notice, I also have white on here. I think it's really fun to play with the lightness of it. So I think if, say, irises, I mentioned them earlier, I feel like they have a very cool color in their leaves, so it's really important to have some white involved in that, just because they're much lighter than what this is. So by cool color, I mean they tend to have a little bit more blue in it, but they're also much lighter than what this color is. So same theory as what I did with the yellow. I would pull some white over to the side and then just add a little bit of this deeper, darker blue-green to it, and you'll get these amazing kind of mint colors. And same thing, I'm just playing with a different paintbrush. Maybe I'm filling in all the white space with no rhyme or reason. Whatever your goal in this case. I might even just pick up a few colors where I'm picking up some yellow, some blue, with no rhyme or reason to it, but I know it eventually get to green, and just see what it's like to make and mix that color on the actual paper too. This way you get this kind of wet on wet blending and these really gorgeous brighter areas of yellow, deeper, darker areas of blue. It's just kind of fun to play. Again, just playfulness, that's all it is. So I'll just continue to fill the space, clean off as needed, add some white if I want it nice and light. I will say, because I'm using an acrylic, I tend to like a phthalo blue, just because I think it makes for a good middle of the road blue. You could go and purchase up-teen amount of blues and truthfully get a different green and with the results of it, and I like to use a more medium yellow base to do so. So again, don't overthink this, just use what you have on hand. This is a great way to kind of use up some paint, give it a little purpose in life, that type of thing. If you want to leave some whites in between there, great. Let's see how deep dark we can get this. I'm just going to keep playing here. Now, not a typical situation in these greens. In the spring with all these greens, everything seems to just look so much brighter and more lively at this point in the year. But you know, we get to those summer months, and so all of a sudden our grass doesn't necessarily look so green anymore, but it might look a little bit more brown, or again, some other shadowy areas of the trees might be a little bit more neutralized, and that's where the red's going to come into play. So if you really think about it, I've got my yellow, blue, and red. Those are my primary colors. White is just there to lighten that particular color that I'm mixing. So no matter what, I still have to have a majority of yellow and blue to still be able to call it green and it still read green, but the red is going to come into play. I'll just use this pile I have here where it's just neutralizing it. So when you mix yellow, red, and blue, they're your primaries, you get a brown or you get a neutral color. But if you really think about the amount of brown we have in our world, if you have a lot of different type of woodworking in your home, if you just look at different trees, you could look at one and say, well, goodness, that one has a greenish tone, that one has a warmer reddish tone, so on and so forth. So that's where you would say you get one or more of some of these other primary colors over the other, but they still kind of balance each other out to get that neutral. So I'm going to add in some red to this green. Notice how dark that gets right off the bat. So I'm going to apply some of those, see how much more dull that is. And sometimes those are good because it makes our brighter ones look even brighter next to it. I could add in white, doesn't mean it changes the color. Then you're getting these kind of interesting, cooler, not super pungent bright colors, but they definitely have their uniqueness too. I could just grab some yellow and mix in there with it and see what I get. Again, you're just playing here. I might start with kind of a brighter one and add just the smallest amount of red. Now, if you look at that and you say, well, goodness, that doesn't look green anymore, it just looks more of a brown, then you would just probably have to add some more yellow and some more blue into it. I'm feeling pretty good about that. And this is where you're going to get, if you see like a camouflage, you look at their greens, they're definitely by no means a bright green. they're going to be more of these neutralized greens that would be found more in the brush of a set of woods and the lower lying trees and bushes and whatnot. And that's it. You could cover as many pages as you absolutely would like. Again, if you have a variety of blues already on hand, a variety of yellows, play with those and see if you get some other outcomes from what those final greens are. Now, you'll notice I did this in a sketchbook. The fun thing could be with this is just a backdrop then. Sometimes I just like to not see white paper in a sketchbook, and I'm more inclined to go back in and draw on top of this, say with like a white pen, or sketch something else on top of it, or even paint something else on it, you name it. So it's just a neat way to have a backdrop. My intention and what I would like to do with this is, because I'm so fond of this time of year, I might write a brief poem, or just do a little bit of creative writing on top of this, again, so it's visible, but it's almost like my ode to green and my graciousness to spring in such a time that we really need this uplifting moment. So I hope you have fun, enjoy painting some greens, and we look forward to catching you next time. You guys stay safe and stay well.